All right, welcome back to the Professor of Perseverance podcast. I'm Dr. James Purdue, the Professor of Perseverance himself, with a podcast. Hey, how you like it? Yeah, you like it. All right. Hey, remember now, I tell you that don't get this doctor thing all whacked up out of the way. I can't write out a prescription for you, but you call me if you need me to. I'll drive you wherever you need to and pick up your prescriptions for you if you need help that way. All right. Hey, today our guest today is overcome adversity. She was diagnosed with an incurable illness at the age of 18, and the overwhelming message she received at that time was to give up her dream. Got a best selling author, Words of Beck from Becky Paroz. Welcome to the show, Beck. Nice book cover. We talked about that before we got started, and you and I had similar taste on our design. This on our latest books. So, Beck, thank you for coming on tonight. Tonight
Thank you.
here, but it's in the morning in Australia.
Sure is nice and sunny over here, even though I'm struggling from the cold. But my cold is everyone else's summer. So that's how we live down here in Queensland, Australia. Thank you very much for having me on the show today.
No, this is exciting. So I'm glad you was able to make it, and really love to hear stories. Not that you had an incurable diagnosis at that age. I'm sorry to hear that, but to hear how you were able to overcome and push through, and you look like you're a little older than 18, so I believe you've done well.
A
So
little bit, yes, a little
so
bit.
if you want to go
Um,
ahead and dive into your story, we'll go ahead and get started.
sure. So it probably starts a bit earlier than that, with a what they call a dysfunctional childhood. Um, and that was a lot of alcoholism, poverty, that sort of thing. So being told, from an early age, not worthy, don't belong, all that sort of stuff. And I decided to go into engineering for my career. So obviously, to get away from that childhood, I wanted, I've got a high-paying job and lots of opportunity to escape that environment. And so I was actually working as a design draftee or drafts person, studying engineering and just kind of kicking off into all of that and the career when at age 18 I was suddenly woke up and unable to move. I couldn't hold a hairbrush, I couldn't do buttons, I didn't have any dexterity, all my limbs were swollen, all my joints were aching, and it was literally an overnight transformation. 6 months it took through, numerous blood tests and scans and all the medical stuff for them to kind of come up with the idea that I have an incredibly severe form of rheumatoid arthritis. Now, everybody, when they hear, what do you mean you've got arthritis? You're young, that's an old person's disease. So straight away, the fact that I had this was devalued and taken away from me because I'm not supposed to. So again, I was made wrong. Um, and then, of course, being told, all the really good news, because back then they kind of didn't really worry too much about mental health. It wasn't, a thing that was kind of considered as a part of a holistic treatment. So I was told, I'd be lucky to make it to 24 before I'd be in a wheelchair. I'd be lucky to live past 40. All this great news that you want to hear when you're 18 and you've just kind of kicked off your life. And as you can imagine, that was tough to hear. I was very angry. I was a very angry young lady with all of that. So I did, the usual, reach out, go to support groups and look at help groups and things like that. Again, overwhelmingly filled with people who had lived their lives and in that older generation, the norm of having arthritis. Being told, well, just give up your dream, just go and do something else, pick something different, which kind of made me more stubborn and kind of, no, I don't, I'm not going to let this disease rule my life. That's not fair. So it actually made me more stubborn and want to stick to the choices that I'd made rather than sort of, give up and leave, because the messages I was getting from, excuse me, overwhelmingly everybody was give up. Um, so that's pretty tough when you kind of confronted with this whole change of life, with your body kind of being the thing that's attacking you, and then all the rest of the messages as well, just kind of like, nah, what are you going to do? Um, So I spent a while obviously being depressed, and that's, a clinical term, but I'd like to probably more think of it as just it was an assessment period. Um, and it was kind of like, well, give up or get going. And at the end of that assessment period, I kind of went, I've got two choices. And if I'm going to give up, then I'm going to give up completely. I'm going to check out. There's no point in living anymore. There's no point in taking it further. There's no point at all. And that didn't suit me. That didn't suit my goals. That didn't suit my personality. It didn't suit the choices I wanted to make. So the other choice was, get stuck into it, get my boots on, get going. And so I did. And so I channeled a lot of that anger and rage and the injustice of it all into action. Some of that was, action in my career and kind of refusal, because obviously in construction 30 years ago, which will give you a hint as to my age, I wasn't very welcome there either. It was still very much a man's world. There wasn't the support and the encouragement of diversity and all the things we have now. It really wasn't acceptable. And so I was being told there, I didn't really belong. So all of this kind of coalesced into this massive, stubborn attitude of no, I'm going to prove everybody wrong, including myself and this ridiculous disease. So 10 years, I suppose, passed and lots of searching and kind of, I'm a very smart young lady. So I was kind of, well, there's got to be a cure out there. That can't be, someone has obviously just missed something. So I've tried it all, from Reiki and candles and meditating and diet changes through to, the medication that they gave me. The medication caused a lot of problems. And currently, I'm on some fantastic medication, which is an immune suppressant. However, it stops the symptoms of disease. And when I first got on that about 12 years ago, I had women coming up to me going, "Have you had a facelift? You look fantastic." I'm like, actually, no, this is my face pain free for the first time in 20 plus years. So, and that statement alone had a really massive impact in kind of making me realize, how long I've been living with this disease and the impact of it. And, a lot of people, we talk about pain, but a lot of people don't realize just how draining pain can be. It is constant and it's always there. Excuse me. And it's about making those choices to kind of go, well, if it's always there, then it's just a part of life. A lot of people let pain stop them. A lot of people have good reason to let pain stop them. But for me, it was a case of, well, it's always going to be there. I'm always going to live with it. So it's going to be there whether I sit on the lounge and watch TV or whether I go and jump out of a plane or, travel or do whatever. And so I chose the whatever. I chose all the others. So yeah, so that's kind of the short version of this story and what I've been through.
And we like the Reader's Digest version. That way, other people can go look you up to find out more about you and to hopefully question and maybe seek you out to help them. So yeah, we like the Reader's Digest version. And so what really stuck out to me at the very beginning, and I've heard this as well before, that we used to just give up and just go, don't worry about it. That's easy for a healthy person to say because they're not going through it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, flip the shoes and everything on them. Now, would they say, well, I'd rather just give up than be like this? They don't know because they're not in that situation. But yeah, that gets me when I hear that, and I've heard it personally,
I'm
and my
sure.
mom had heard it. My mom was even told, because I'm in a wheelchair. My mom was even told that by a friend of hers that if I was having my son is in a wheelchair now, said I would just put a bullet in his head and put one in mine. And I'm going, what?
Oh,
She told me that, and I said, what? Well, that's easy for them to say because they're not going through it. And
wow,
so,
it's really
you know,
callous of them to say too, because
well, yeah, but yeah,
yeah.
to even say that out loud,
Mm,
is different as well. But so I'm glad that instead of you giving up, you decide to go on, with life and to put you where you're at. So that's great. So, and you went through your depression state, and we've all been through that. We've all been through it more than once in life. We don't
yes.
have to be hit with some type of tragedy to go through a depression. And so I think it's okay to go through a depression, given you don't stay in there long. Get in and get out. You know,
Yes. Yes, that's what I say.
It
Like,
gives you it gives you an opportunity to reassess where you're at in life, to see how far you have come in life, and how far you really want to go in life. So I think it's okay to visit. I got a friend. Her dad used to tell her it's okay to visit Peteyville, but it's unacceptable to move in. So
that's very much what I say. Like, throw the pity party. You know, bring all the balloons, bring all the food, get all the ice cream, throw yourself into it, do the crying or the sad movies or the indulgent food, whatever it is that is your process. But throw the pity party. Turn up, indulge completely in it, and then give yourself a deadline to go, right, pity party's closed, it's over. Pick yourself back up and kind of go on again. It's okay to feel the feelings, and of course you're going to feel them. You know, they don't ever go away. You just learn to manage and learn to focus on other things, focus on the positive, focus on the possibilities, focus on the potential. And you know, the pity is often minimized at, you know, during those times, but every now and then there's a, like you said, there's not even necessarily a trigger. You're just kind of like, right, it's time to feel those feelings, and that's what I'm going to do. But I'm not going to move in, as the saying goes. Absolutely correct.
that's right. John Bentley, thank you for coming in. And he says, persevere. That's right. That's the name of the program, Perseverance. Thank you, John Bentley, for coming in, brother. So, and so, all right, now then, you decided to, I don't really like this term, but people say pull yourself up by the bootstraps and
Mhm.
decided to move on in life and do what you can and do the best that you can. Uh, But even though that decision, even though with your illness continuing on, sort of looking like you said, you tried just about everything to help with that, and some, like you said, with some of the medicine, was just more of a put back and than helpful. And so that's what you go. That's what you do when you do the old trial and error and go for everything. So, but what was able to make you decide? You know, I'm moving on. I'm being hard headed. I'm not going to sit back. I'm going to do the best I can. Yes, I'm going to have days I don't feel like it. Yes, I'm going to have days I'm in pain and really don't feel like it. But I'm not going to waddle around in this negative mud trap with the pigs. I'm moving on. What
Mhm.
made you decide to do that? Was it already instilled in you? Did you learn this? Did you seek help?
I tried help. You know, did the old psychiatrist couch, who, you know, wanted to talk about my mother and father and the relationship, and my, how is this going to help me with, you know, my disease. Um, and again, very angry and very stubborn. So, like, well, I'm just going to sit here and you're going to talk. I'm like, well, no, that's not what I'm paying you for. So I sat there for 50 minutes silent. They sat there for 50 minutes silent. And of course, I never went back. Um, and you know, after, like I said, with all the help groups and give up all the messages, I kind of went, well, if it's to be, it's up to me. Um, and so I did it myself. I stopped looking externally for help and started sort of looking internally. Part of that was looking for a cure, part of that was looking for the magic pill or the magic diet or the magic whatever. Um, and after a while, obviously realizing that that just simply doesn't exist. I did coaching. I learned NLP. I've got a diploma in aromatherapy. You know, like I've really done a whole broad look at it. What's probably changed is after maybe about 10 years of searching. Um, you know, I got myself healthy and fit. I was doing weightlifting. I was a manager in my career, and remember, construction industry. So, you know, be below 30 to be a manager in female is a pretty good achievement. But what I wasn't seeing is all these achievements. I was just seeing that I was still in pain and still striving. And unfortunately, with some of the coaching training that's out there in the NLPs, they think it's a magic pill that cures everything through mindset. And so you get that toxic positivity of, you know, just believe in it and it will happen. Um, they kind of miss there's this whole lot of action, and then there's some science as well behind that. And so, you know, I'm not going to magically cure my genetic disposition through the power of my thought. But what I realized is going through that is what I had done through the power of my thought is overcome what limitations were put on me by others. the give up, the you'll never make it, you're gonna not gonna be walking and all that sort of stuff. And I realized I kind of got to 27 and there was no wheelchair in sight, um, which that started that sort of wake up thought process. And someone else also kind of commented, like, look how much you've done compared to other people your age. And ask yourself if you'd done that if you didn't have the disease to push you. And so that was a really powerful kind of reframe, kind of, that kind of, you hear brakes in your head and kind of, oh, hang on, pull up. I've got to think about that for a couple of seconds. And kind of, they're probably in some ways very right, is that because I had this sort of idea of limitation, an idea of, shortened lifespan and less than, I made sure that my life had more than. And so, by that stage, I'd traveled around Australia several times. I was in a very lucrative job, earning much more than, my counterparts. I was in a management position. I had a whole lot of freedom. And I'd also achieved a lot. Like, I'd done skydiving, I'd done racing cars, I'd flown helicopters. Like, I'd done all this adventure stuff because I wanted to kind of cram it all in and make, 40 years count for 80 kind of thing. And so that reframe of look at how far I'd come despite the disease, or perhaps because of this resistance I had to letting it rule my life, kind of that really allowed me to move into a different mindset of being, much more confident and being, I suppose, much more at peace. I think there's a really big thing of coming to accept, and it doesn't mean that you're happy with it. It doesn't mean you necessarily embrace it, but coming to accept that this is your life, that this is a part of
There's
it.
the key word we're looking for,
Yeah.
acceptance. That's the
Yes.
key thing. And I really love it when you said earlier, I decided, that's it. I decided to stop listening to the naysayers. I decided I'm going to prove everyone wrong, including myself.
Yeah.
And so, with all that to happen, even though you said, you went years, 10 years or what, looking for that cure, that magic bean, to get everything right. See, I spent the first 5 years being in a wheelchair looking for that. I went to 18 different rehabs looking for that cure to
Wow.
walk again. And so finally, I accepted what's going on. Now, not to
Yeah.
say I didn't work hard beforehand, and you did the same thing. You worked hard beforehand, but it may have felt like you were working uphill, working hard until you finally accepted things. Then things seem to become more easier because now you go, all right, I got this daggum illness. I got this incurable. Now, how can I still do what I want to do without hurting myself more, without draining my energy, and finding a smarter route to do things?
Yes. All of the things. Yes, you don't, you tend to stop that push against it and kind of work with it. And yes, exactly, like, okay, my body says this weekend is a no weekend. We're saying no to everything, we're relaxing, we're sleeping, we're allowing rest to happen, um, and whatever that looks like, and that allows me to go and have adventures for the next 3 weekends. But it's yeah, you start to work in synergy with what your body is doing and telling you, instead of completely against it all the time. And that, like you said, striving and pushing uphill and kind of going, wow, I normally live in pain, but it's extra today, so I need to achieve more today to overcome that. I could kind of, actually, no, I don't. Today I could actually just achieve the minimum and let that pain be what it is, and not actually amplify it, by trying to push through it and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, and acceptance is, it's really hard. It's, particularly if you haven't had this and you didn't grow up with this. I understand it's different for people who are born with disability and that's all they know. And I imagine there's still an acceptance process for them, but I also recognize that it's quite different from what, people like me go through, who sort of have it at a later stage and kind of have this life shock of, but that's what I want, and that realization of you're never going to get that back. Even if there was a magic cure, this disease of, that I've had nearly 30 years now has changed who I am and changed the course of my life. So it's never going to go back to what it was. And that acceptance of every day waking up and going, yes, I have this. What am I going to achieve? And what am I going to achieve with this, or despite this, but without being detrimental to where I am?
Yes, and two things here that that really stood out, and I forgot both of them already. But one of them was I think you said someone had mentioned to you, do you think you would have done as much if you didn't have your illness, your disease? Did it help push you to do more? And I can see you probably said yes, because again, you wanted to prove everyone wrong, including yourself. All right. And then the other thing, I can't remember exactly what you said, but I'm thinking that you when you were making I forgot, talking about acceptance and everything like that, and but to me the answer would have been again being strong minded is was able to give you an edge over everything. And another thing I was going to mention was we and this was mentioned by two different other people I've interviewed, and they both basically said we need to know our bodies better than the doctor does. How many
Yes.
people the doctor knows more about them than they do, and because they're not listening and paying attention to little triggers, like you said, if you try to go out and you did it before, I'm assuming that you knew you were hurting, aching, weak, but then you try to push through it, and all it did was tear you down 5 days longer than if it would have been 2 days worth, and it set you back longer. Then you've learned with your body to take a weekend off, 5 days off, to keep you stronger for the next 6 weeks.
Yes, I absolutely agree with that statement about the doctors and knowing your body better. I've had, and I'm sure people can relate to this. I've had stand-up arguments with doctors over treatments and concepts, and what they think is best. And I've literally had doctors try and tell me, "But I'm the expert. I know more than you." I'm like, "You know more than me about the disease. You do not know more than me about my body, my specific conditions, and how I live with it."
Exactly.
Yeah, he didn't like that, and obviously he's no longer my doctor. We didn't last very long together, but he wanted to manage my depression around my disease rather than my disease. I'm like, I don't need help with that. I'm 30 at this time. I'm a 30-plus-year-old woman. I have a successful career. I don't need to take tablets for depression. If I do, I will reach out and get that help when I need it. What I need is the pain managed, and all of the things that I'm taking now are not managing that. So I absolutely agree. Like I have friends who kind of like tell me what this feels like to live with, and it is really hard to describe. But when I sort of go, okay, I've got about 30 different ways to describe pain, because every day or every moment or every change is a different type of pain. And I think people who live with chronic pain can probably really relate to that. Is there's so many different types of pain. You learn to categorize them. I know some people even give them pet names because it's like, oh, it's that one today. Um, and unfortunately, that's one of the things about arthritis is all the symptoms they're not predictable. I wake up one day with this and I wake up the next day with that. I get stormake in Queensland, Australia. We have magnificently big storms, and with the pressure change, my knee it blows out and aches like I've never felt before. As soon as the storm's gone, it's over, and that's a very different ache to the day-to-day ache of my fingers, for example. You can I just get that in the camera. You can see some of the deformation in my hand, and that ache when I've typed too much is a different ache. And it's about having that communication with your body and knowing what it means, and knowing that type of pain I can overcome, that type of pain I can ignore, that type of pain I can medicate, this type of pain, oh, I've got to stop walking for 2 days. And the big thing with arthritis is use it or lose it. So I spent all my time using it. But what I didn't realize is, as you said, some days when I've used it too much, I've actually made it worse and made it last longer than if I just give it a little bit of a rest and be kind to it. Um, then it's going to be a lot quicker process. And that again, that comes with acceptance and acknowledging that I don't have to overcome today. I just have to turn up. Some days it's just about being present and not about actually achieving or striving or, being that motivational being that we so try to be. Which leads me to the other side of course, is the, oh, you're so inspirational. Oh, you're so motivational.
Mm.
Um,
Yes.
and that kind of, oh, but I don't want to be. I'd rather not have the disease than be your inspiration, if you don't mind. Um, and I think we all can probably relate to that too. Is that pat on the head? It's like, oh, you're doing so well for a person like you, and it's like, wow.
Pat on the
And
head
most,
makes you want to sit up and do the dog thing and put your tongue out. And so,
yeah, yeah, and people don't understand, and I'm sure everyone can relate to this. The old, oh, I broke my leg once too. I really understand how a sore ankle works. It's like, oh, and it's when I was young and very angry, I responded poorly to those types of things, and some people got quite a shock when they were trying to empathise. Um,
a lot of
and
people,
it's
they
not,
mean well. They
they
mean
do.
well. They just not thinking correctly on some
Yes,
of it, but they do mean well. And I do
they
understand the you're an inspiration. One guy come up to me one time at the store and said, "Man, you inspire me." And I go, "What? You just see me pushing up the aisle. You didn't see me get out of my car, get out of my van, get out of my bed, get dressed. You didn't see any of that. You just see me pushing." And so, and then I went on to tote, and I was in one of those bad moods. And you've been there before, and I went on and said, "Man, I shouldn't be your inspiration. Your inspiration ought to be you within yourself. You ought to be able to be inspired by yourself, inspired by your family, your kids, your spouse. It shouldn't be me."
Absolutely. And yeah, exactly. Go and find your own inspiration, because I have to find inspiration every day just to, like I said, get out of bed some days. So it's it's patronizing. And like you said, people mean really well, but I don't need to hear the 25 different cures for arthritis because I've heard them all before. I had a friend, beautiful friend, and she was diagnosed with breast cancer a while back, and she's fully recovered now after a 5-year
Good,
journey.
amen.
Yes, but when it first happened, she came to me and she's like, "Oh, I get you so much more now. I understand you so much more now," because she was getting them. Oh, chamomile tea can cure breast cancer, and all that sort of stuff. And she's like, "Oh, now I get why you react badly, because it's really offensive. It's careless, it's thoughtless, and like you said, it means well, but they're not actually taking a pause and checking in or any of that sort of stuff. So, all of this either makes or breaks you, doesn't it? In terms of that perseverance, you either learn to live with it and go, thanks for your input, um, or you give back some advice on how they perhaps can manage their sympathy and empathy better. Um, or you spend your life being very angry about all these things, and it builds up and builds up, and you become that person that no one wants to be around. And it's not because of your disease, it's because of your attitude, and which comes back to the mindset thing of excuse me, of realizing that I have the best mindset I can about this disease. It's what's kept me out of a wheelchair, it's what's kept me walking, it's what kept me working, it's what's added to all my achievements and all the awards I've won and the leadership that I've conducted, and I have a great mindset around this. Just because my mindset hasn't cured my disease does not diminish anything about me or my life in any way.
That's right.
Um,
Now, if
mm,
I mean, you've been incredible here speaking and pushing, overcoming. If you could give a 2 or 3 step process that maybe to help someone that's listening, one of the listeners here, and then it's that be pertaining to the arthritis and your illness. I mean, it could be the 2 or 3 steps. It's generic, basically can help anyone. So what could you give them to help them?
okay, there's a couple of things. Um, Ignore all the well-meaning advice. And by that I mean filter through it and go, this is useful, this isn't, and discard anything that isn't. Don't feel bad. Don't feel like you have to make anyone feel good about discarding it. Just go, thanks for that. But really, really filter all of the advice and distill it down into what's useful and what's not, and get rid of what's not. Um, Second thing is focus on what you want. We can, people with disability can list 1,000 million things of what we don't want. Focus on what you do want. And that's much harder to distill. But once you have that thing or those few things that make your life worthwhile and give you that inspiration to keep going, that's what you need to hold on to, and that's what you need to find. For me, it was leaving a legacy. It was changing the story of my childhood. It was wanting it to mean something, which is, what's led to the books and all of that sort of thing. Even though that wasn't the plan back then, I didn't know what they looked like, but those are the kinds of things I held on to when it all got too much. When the pity party became, a block party and everyone was invited, it's the kind of thing I use to go, well, why am I staying here when that's where I want to be? Um, so between filtering the good advice, focusing on what you do want, and keeping that in your vision, the next thing is just act. Take one step, one role, one movement towards what it is you want each day. And if one step is all you can take, one movement, one action, one little bit closer, then you are still closer than you were the day before. If you can take more than that, push yourself and do it. Absolutely. But every day, make sure you are that one step closer to the person you want to be and what you want to achieve for life, while filtering out all of the irrelevant information that is so readily available to you. I think that's probably a pretty good recipe
I
for
think it's a pretty good
persevering.
recipe for everybody to mix it all up, and make your own perseverance cake. So
Indeed.
there you go. And I would add in there, and I'm sure you would have eventually asked for two or three, but I'm sure you would eventually come up with and added in there if I'd asked for more. Was don't be afraid to fail. I mean, we learn
Oh,
a lot from
absolutely.
failure. We learn a lot from failure. We know where we need to go or don't want to go, or where we need to go, or what we need to eliminate, what we need to add. But don't be afraid of failure, and don't think that's the worst thing in the world. So, again, we're
Yes.
speaking with best-selling author, book Words of Beck. And this is Beck that we're talking to. So, all right, hey, tell us, what do you do to help out people? You got to give speeches? Do you have workshops?
Oh, I
So if
do.
you
I
can
do
give us
lots.
some insight on what you do, please.
Sure, I do lots of things, and I suppose I fell into that as well. I mentor a lot of young women in the industry. Obviously, construction is still fairly male dominated. There is still some toxic behaviours in amongst some of the really good people I've met. So I mentor not only young women but young men. But recently, it's been predominantly young women to kind of really make it and kick it in the industry, overcome their own limitations, learn to deal with the feedback of others. Excuse me, and embrace their leadership and confidence and goals, and kind of really make it in the industry. So that's one way of giving back in my career. I do that a little bit with some women I know with arthritis. I'm kind of their support person. Call on me. I've been living with it forever, it feels like. um, and I have some people who are only recently diagnosed in the last 5 years. I've got one beautiful friend. She's utterly gorgeous, and she was a bodybuilder. Those gorgeous women with cut muscles that look fantastic. She went from that to having rheumatoid arthritis and putting on 20, 30 kilos in a very short amount of time because of the pain and the movement. So once again, kind of really relating to that loss of body image and loss of reliance on body, and something that she was using as a career has just completely let her down. So I try and provide support to some people in that space. And as a result of obviously trying to reach, rather than one-on-one, trying to reach wider, I wrote the book, and I'm writing a couple of other books around sort of dealing with this. I give a lot of speeches, and one of the things I acknowledge in those speeches is normally the fact that I have this disease. And I try not to use it as, I suppose, inspirations, like, look at what I've achieved when I've got this, so what's your excuse? Because I think that's quite rude. um, but I try and show people what's possible. It's more how I reframe it. It's like, look at what's possible. So whatever limitation you have, whether it's physical, mental, societal, economic, you can overcome it. So I've come from a poverty background. I've got an illness. Like, I tick all the boxes for not being able to achieve in life, given statistically how those people are framed in society to end up. Um, so I like to use a lot of my speeches and presentations in that framework of this is what's possible, which I think is a much better concept than this is inspirational and motivational. It's just, this is what's possible. You make your own choices from that. And yeah, I do a couple of workshops. I do a lot of stuff, and it's really hard to put into that 30-second elevator pitch. But I coach people on how to self-publish. I love teaching people how to write their own books and encourage them. Um, I still work in the industry and construction and kind of, mentor business owners and actually work on projects when I have the opportunity. Obviously, recently in the development of our world post C19, that's been a little bit more problematic. But I've been doing a lot more on podcasts. This is kind of my way of getting out there, and maybe only one person sees this, but maybe that's the one person that needs that message that day.
Maybe it's that one. That's right, exactly. And go ahead and tell us your social media, how people can get hold of you if they need to or want to.
Okay, so Words of Beck, BEK, as you saw on the book there, is my Insta handle, www.wordsofbeck.com.au. Remember the AU, I'm in Australia. And Facebook, you can have a look for Planet Beckstar, which is also labeled Words of Beck on Facebook, and find me that way. So you can look me up on the socials. I'm Becky Paroz on LinkedIn if you'd like to professionally connect with me. So you will find me, because it's a fairly uncommon name. So even if you just look up Paroz with the Beck in front of it, you'll find me there.
There you go, Paroz Beck. It's the BEK and PAROZ. And I'll link this stuff in the description as well, so people can make it easier to find you as well. And I was re-looking back while you were talking, and I really like this titles for topics possibly. And I like this where you have resiliency as your best attribute. I really like
Absolutely.
that. That would make a good title of a book. Don't sue me if I take that title as a book now. So
Maybe we can do it together.
there, well, with
I
that,
think we've both got a lot of information
yeah,
we
but
can throw in that.
I never collaborated with someone. Maybe we can do that together. That would be
Looking forward
nice.
to it.
Yeah, we can do that. So, all right, Beck, I appreciate you being on here. Boy, you've come up with I mean, you've gone through a lot, you've overcome a lot, and you definitely have proved people wrong, and looks like you proved yourself wrong. And again, I'm glad that you're here and you're helping. I hate to use the term, but you are inspiring, motivating, and empowering other people other than women that come in listening. So I'm glad of that as well. So, hey, you know as well as I do, there's people hurting today. And if you can give a powerful message that can help them get through today, that would be awesome.
I've just lost you for that last bit. Will you ask me to give something?
Okay. Yes. We know there are people that are hurting, struggling today. And if you can give a powerful message to help them get through today, that would be awesome.
Powerful message. Oh, now you put me on the spot. Okay, my personal motto is I would rather die of thirst than drink from the cup of mediocrity.
There you go. It's awesome. Yes. We don't want to be mediocre there in anything. We want to be the best that we are capable of being. So that's an awesome little motto. You need to
Thank you.
put that up on your wall somewhere.
I do. I have it everywhere.
There you
It's what
go.
I use to remind me when I'm having that pity party or I'm about to spiral or kind of go, oh, can I really be bothered? It's like, well, I could not be bothered and be mediocre, or I could be the best that I can be.
Amen, sister. All right. Well, Beck, thank you for being on here and helping other people and everything like that. And everyone else, be sure to visit her sites. Go check her out. See if possibly she can help you with something. Hey, I'm Dr. James Perdue, the professor of perseverance. Hey, if there's any way I can help you, go to my website, and it's just professorofperseverance.com. And then you can go down to the scroll down a little bit and have a free mini course and a free ebook where your past doesn't have a future, but you do. Create your future today. See if that'll help you out a little bit. Again, it's free. Everyone else, thank you for coming in. Thank you for people that's coming in on the replay. Be sure to share it out to everyone. Do something today, tomorrow, something next week that's going to help you persevere past your